Welcome, dear Autogefühl friends, with another Audi performance review. And well, there are not so many possibilities to spend 150,000 bucks for an Audi, but this is one. So this vehicle itself actually really costs 150,000 bucks on the list price. Well, the usual A7, the usual Audi A7 starts at about 50,000 euros in Germany, for example. The S7 is around 80,000 euros. And then here the RS7 is about 130,000 euros. And then you can put something more in there, which makes it even more expensive. Today we're going to find out about the performance of the Audi RS7, the real war machine from Audi, and also about the additional extras, which makes it even more exclusive. By the end of last year, we have shown you the A7 Facelift in the usual version. This is now the RS7 Facelift, and of course there are always some kind of features which differ from the usual version to make this one here in that racing style. For example, we have this huge black grille in this comp structure with the RS7 logo, and what is a very neat feature is this big Quattro sign here at the lower part. Of course, we also got a special bumper here as well, and bigger air intakes here as well in this black comp structure. Altogether, it's of course more aggressive than the usual version, but again, I must say it's not that kind of crawling for attention. This is still more an understatement car in my opinion, although we got a quite prominent front grille here. But in general, if you can see it in the side view quite soon as well, this car is really more about the power inside. Here at the side we got the 20-inch alloys, pretty massive, but you see the wheels are also massive, so it's not too much danger to damage the alloys. You also see they are a little bit kind of inlet in there, so you get quite some of overlay here to protect the alloys, and so far they still look quite good. In here we got the special Audi ceramic brakes, 4 of them. They cost about 8,000 or 9,000 euros. You see this very detailed structure of the ceramic brakes. You don't really need it on the street. It's usually for the racetrack that you don't have this fading effect. So with ceramic brakes, they don't lose braking effect even when they're very hot. This is part of the dynamic package 2, and we're going to talk about that one later because it's a quite funny thing, though. Stay on. So far now we are focusing on the side profile. I love these side mirrors because they got this kind of dynamic form, building kind of a top on here. Or they also look great when you're sitting inside. And then if we take the bigger picture, it's of course this classical A7 design. We are already in the upper class, but still we got a very nice flowing rear window here, and that makes the car really agile, more agile than the other upper class cars. So this one really defines I'm the sporty upper class. In the RS7, you see it here at the lower part, we got a bigger bumper on the side as well, and well, on the rear from the side there's not so much else to see, only if you get to the really rear part, if you look straight from it. And that is where we really see the difference, not on the RS7 logo. We got a pretty massive diffuser here in black, and then we got with the RS7 a special sport exhaust, but this exhaust here is a special sport exhaust, 1,500 euros extra. It's adding even more to that sound. You see the end pipe here, it really looks like a head of a child could fit in there just from the size. But that is actually, if you look at it in very detail, it's kind of a little bit of fake, because inside here there are 2 pipes each, which are the actual exhaust. So we got actually 4 pipes, but this is just for the visual side, but of course pretty massive here. And I can show you one special feature here also in the rear. If you look at the rear lights, for example, when I open the car, you see this cascading effect. The A7 has this now in the facelift. You have to pick the more expensive lights, but of course the RS7 already has them. And the same effect also applies for the front. It's a nice visual feature and adds more to this very exclusive car. So let's take a look at the interior. The car sits 20 millimeters lower. That's of course for the sporty effect, but you don't really realize it when getting in. What you do realize are these special sports seats with integrated headrests. They are so beautiful as well. And then there's here the Audi exclusive option. That's about like 6,000 euros more or so. So, well, I don't really need it, but let's just explain what it does. You got the red contrast stitching here inside this comp structure here as well. What is very, very nice, I think, is that you got the same structure here as in the front grille. But for me personally, I would always prefer Alcantara seats, but they are of course also available in the A7. However, this is a special one in here with the red contrast stitching, and you also got a red seat belt. Then let's take a sit. So the cockpit very clean as we are used to from Audi. I can also take the red seat belt now, pretty racy. And then when I start the car, it gets really interesting. We got the start button here, and then of course a great sound, and we got the screen which is popping up, and also the steering wheel is lowered, so I can easily get in with a higher steering wheel and then it goes lower again. It does not always work, so sometimes it malfunctions and doesn't come down all the way, but it's okay because you got the electronic control here as well, where you can put it in the front and the back and also up and down again. But that's one very seldom flaw we have with Audi. It doesn't always work. We know that, for example, from Jaguar, that happens quite a lot, that this automatic steering column doesn't work that perfectly. But I had it like 1 or 2 times where it didn't really work, but most of the time it does. In general, it's a really amazing cockpit. So now you see the steering wheel, very sporty also with the red contrast stitches. It's got a flattened end with the RS7 logo, so that's very beautifully done. And it's just, in my opinion, one of the most perfect steering wheels because it gives you so much control and so much grip. And well, even in the city it's very good because it's quite agile, and then of course if you got this more racing style when driving, it also helps pretty much. So this one is one of the most perfect steering wheels in my opinion. From serial production with the RS7 comes this aluminium style, but you can actually pick them without extra price. You can have it like that with a checkered aluminum structure, but it's also possible to have a matte aluminum style, for example. If you didn't pick that one, there's also a black carbon structure possible as well. So really nice choices there. And well, it doesn't really fit to the RS7, but you can also have for an optional price the wooden interior, but that maybe would fit more when you pick, for example, the A7 with a 3-liter diesel or something like that. Then I think it's a very good solution that they have the screen here. You've seen it maybe, I got an extra key to put it in and out again. Here we get a straight line with a shiny black on the top. And even if we put it out, we got the straight line here again. And this is better done than, for example, with Mercedes, where we get it just kind of attached on there and looks kind of displaced. But here it looks like it would be really perfect in place, in my opinion. Aluminum style with the Quattro logo here also on the co-driver seat. And then we got a very special feature I can better show you with the screen hidden. Because some of you maybe know from the Jaguar XJ, there's a kind of yard style in the interior, where you get it kind of like a yard in wood, where you have this going around all the interior in the front. But this one is here as an aluminum style. It's also beautifully done if you follow it really from right or to the left. Oh, failed, because this one is the instrument for the head-up display, and this one kind of annoys this this visual structure. But I'm going to show you later also when driving you really have to decide what you want. Do you more want optical finesse, or do you prefer to have the head-up display? You can really argue about that, and I also want to hear your opinion on that one. Also, I'm interested, what do you think about this interior? Because some of you really love Audi interiors, but some others say, well, it's for that price maybe a little bit too boring. But I think in this case, especially with the aluminum checkered structure, it's really nice. It's also kind of understatement. It's not too pompous, you know, not too much wood here and another feature there and an analog clock or whatever. So it's kind of modern and stylish, but also very refined. Here we got a dark seating, by the way. I would always pick a bright seating because it fits better to any car, in my opinion. But of course, this black seating more stands for this racing car as well. So, and altogether, I must say, the only thing I don't really like is this black plastic here on the top of the dashboard. It does not have to be leather. Well, it could be, for example, artificial leather that is used on the dashboard. That looks very good. But it can also have another nicer structure here. They're even in cheaper cars. For example, we recently now did a review on the Citroën C4. You can, of course, not compare these cars, but the structure is used on the dashboard really looks better than this one, and that is kind of strange when you pay 150,000 euros for such a car here, that you don't have a really nice dashboard on the upper part. Then we can also take a short look at the instruments. We see here a classic and clean Audi instrument with the RPM meter and also the speed. In the middle, well, the consumption went a little bit up now because we did some acceleration tests, but I'm going to talk about the usual consumption later on in the driving. It's about 12 liters. And then we can also change what we see here in the middle. For example, we can also have the GPS right here in the middle. That's also possible. Or for example, the telephone function, or if you want to use your mobile phone for music playing. So it's also quite good. It's not a new virtual cockpit, but I think I would be pretty much fine with that one. So the driver also has the GPS here and not only in the central display. Now let's get in the rear compartment, and there the RS7 really has an advantage over other cars in this segment, because I have the super sport car here kinda, but still have enough space in the rear compartment. And I also have way more space than, for example, in the Mercedes CLS. First of all, this is the seat as I would be driving now, 1.86 meters as always. I'm actually staying at that size forever, I think. Enough room for your legs, so you can easily travel with 4 adults. And well, the headspace is of course at the rear starting to decrease, but for my size, as I said, 1.86 m, it's still okay. And there you have got that advantage in comparison to other cars, which are falling down at the rear hard more than this one actually does. So I'm really perfectly fine with the rear seats. We also got the Audi exclusive structure here at the rear, so it all fits together, also with the red contrast stitches. That's also kind of impressive. And we also got a control for the climate and even seat heating here in the rear compartment. And finally, the trunk. I must say, this is one of my most favorite trunks in all the automotive industry. Why? Because it has this very beautiful design. Of course, it's not the most practical one, because then it would be like this. But this really has a nice design. We also don't have a really fat rear wing here. It's integrated in here. But then we can open it electronically. We have to hold it, the key. Then it opens. And here we also got an advantage to other cars in the upper class. Also to the, from the brand inside, from the Audi A8, for example. We don't have a separated trunk. It's more like an estate version, but you still got this combination of a beautiful design outside and a very practical entry to the rear. So you can really put a lot of stuff here. Of course, you're a little bit limited in the height here, but other than that, you really can put so much things here. It's very steep as well. Can also put a lot of long things in there. Also quite low loading still, and a practical net here as well to secure things when you go for that racing style. And of course, that will be very interesting. By the way, if we want to close it again, we have to hold it, because that's kind of a security feature. that no one gets in between there and you don't maybe watch it. So you really have to hold it. So, and what is missing now? Yes, of course. Let's take a look at the engine before we start driving. So let's open the machine. You hear it, it's still cooling down. Autogefühl hydraulic damper test checked. This is, well, really some very incredible piece. You still hear the turbo is cooling because it would actually overheat even when the car is standing still now. So this one here is a 4-liter V8 turbo. TFSI is the abbreviation for the turbo engines from Audi. This one delivers 560 horsepower, really massive, 700 Newton meters of torque, axle maximum, 3.9 seconds from 0 to 100, and we are also having a 0 to 200 acceleration test for you today. And I can already say it's so incredible because it feels so light. Actually, it feels like some other car would be from 0 to 100 when you're going 0 to 200 kilometers here. This is also, of course, due to the Quattro all-wheel drive. You couldn't get all the power with the front wheels to the road, and we also got this sporty characteristic where a lot of torque is directed to the rear wheels, and that makes the car also very well controllable. We also got 3 ESC options, so basically everything. Then you maybe also see it in some of our outside driving shots. Then each of the separate wheels are kind of reduced in torque, and you can really very well control the car, but cannot drive that sporty. Then you can set it to ESC Sport. Then you can also slide around the rear a little bit. You can also see it in some of the shots we did. And there's a third option to put everything off, but I would not recommend it because the car is still about 2 tons. And as soon as this car gets a little bit uncontrollable, you know, it's too late. You can't really that well catch it. But the ESC Sport, it's a very good solution to have a lot of fun, also to get a little bit of spin at the rear, but still keep a little bit of control to that car. But in general, also when the acceleration, you see, due to this Quattro drive, it's really possible to control this kind of power also, and that's also kind of this amazing features of that car. Now it's stopping, it gets silent. But you know, we're starting it now again, so no pause here for the engine. And that's the task of this V8. So let's get to some driving now. Really looking forward to it because this is a real driving machine. Starting here with a very nice start and stop button. Whoa, and you hear the sound. It awakes to life. Then we got here the DSG, dual clutch transmission, the Audi S-Tronic, sending it to drive mode. And then we can begin our journey. And the most amazing thing here about the RS7 is it is basically such a sporty car, but still you can ride it very comfortably. We're feeling it here in the suspension. You could ride forever and don't feel any exhausting. You can also look here at the central monitor. It's, by the way, a very funny system. We can put it in and out. Very clean. I like to ride it that way as well. And with this button here. Yeah, and here, for example, it's the Audi Drive Select, and this really makes a difference. There was a time where this selection didn't make such a difference in cars, where you didn't really feel something. But here now, in the comfort mode, we really got a comfortable suspension, also for long Autobahn journeys, for example. That's pretty good. And then with the Drive Selector below here, we can change it, just turn. By the way, just here to the sound here, very high class, and also the haptical feeling when the turning knob is setting to the next level, it feels so high class and premium. And then we can see here in the central display that we set it, for example, well, auto, then you automatically adjust it, so you can leave it like that basically. And when we put it to dynamic, then a lot of parameters change. For example, the RPM meter goes higher. So we got kind of a preload. The steering gets stiffer, the throttle input reacts faster, and the suspension, you really feel it. It's getting kind of bumpy. That's not recommendable for just everyday driving, but it is good for the racetrack, for example, or if you just want to have some very nice, fast and racy corners. and also the exhaust changes. For example, when I brake and the S-tronic is shifting down, I heard this sound, this clicking from the exhaust in the back. And also when I just push the throttle, the sound is reacting faster to it. Maybe you've heard it now. I'm not sure how the internal microphone here transports it now, but we're going to hear it later as well. But that's also a very emotional feature here with the Audi RS7 in this dynamic mode. So always when you want to have fun, you just pick it to that mode here. I can also show you on the central screen how the GPS works and looks like. You see we got very clear display, very modern style. Of course, it's not the satellite nav view we got in the Audi Virtual Cockpit from the all-new TT, for example. But I'm really fine with this. This is also great for a co-driver to check everything, and also the reaction times are just great, I must say. You control it with the keys here below, so it's not a touch screen, and then you can control every feature. And it's also good to do it as a driver, because you can rest down your arm and then control everything. That's pretty fine. It is also possible to put the GPS in your central view in the instruments. So that's a good feature, that you also don't get too distracted as a driver when looking at the central screen here. So you also got the instruments which are adjustable. Usually, for example, I got the consumption in here now. It is 12.3 liters on 100 kilometers. Well, that's of course not a little consumption, but what do you expect here of this 4-liter V8? And if you want to have some fun, the consumption does go higher, of course. But there's also another great feature for your information, that is the head-up display we got here in my central view. We are also going to show you quite soon how that really looks, because you can't see it from the co-driver perspective. There, for example, we can see how fast I'm going actually, and what is the speed limit currently at the street. That's also quite a nice feature. And you can, for example, also adjust the height and the brightness of the head-up display. However, if you look here in the front, this one is actually the thing which is projecting the HUD onto the screen. And of course, well, from the optical side, that's really bad, because we usually got this yard atmosphere here going around the cockpit. But this one is totally destroying that optic. So you really have to decide, do you want this head-up display, or do you want a nicer visual here in the front? Well, if you ask me, I would like to have the nicer visual in the front, but the head-up display is really nice, because I'm always keeping my side to the front of the road, and that's also a safety feature. So at the end of the day, I would probably go for the safety feature, I must say. Now there's a very funny thing, because we're going in a tunnel. If we lower the window, and we can also hear the sound when accelerating. I'm checking just if we are in yes, we are in dynamic mode. Sorry. You know, I'm usually very calm when driving and reporting, but you see, the RS7 is set to have very spontaneously and emotional reactions. By the way, this is an extra exhaust, cost about 1,500 euros. If you wonder, yeah, that's possible for an RS7? Yes, it is, because it usually has sport exhaust, but then there's an extra additional sport exhaust possible to even stress that sound. So, and about the general driving, we're soon getting to one of our tracks where we test it dynamically. The steering wheel is just working great, a nice structure, very sporty steering wheel, also with this flattened end. And we also got a quite progressive steering. You see, we don't need much steering weight to really control the car. And for such a heavy and such a long car, it's just so easy to control. That is really amazing. Going here right and left, it feels like a lighter car. Just when you're in a corner and then pushing the throttle, it pushes you to the outside a little bit. Then you really realize it's a heavier car. And also when braking, although we have the optional ceramic brakes here, which is kind of the best thing you can do for a car in general, and you usually just need them at a racetrack, Although that you really realize it's a heavy car, because when you brake, this is just physics to brake down, not to brake down, sorry, to reduce your speed for such a heavy car. It's just not possible to do it faster when you have that weight on your shoulders. But still, besides the braking process, it really feels like a lighter car, and I think the Audi RS7 really sets standards for the sporty upper class as for handling and the sporty agility, and that's really, I think, the most remarkable thing at all about this car. So now let's do the acceleration test. 3.9 seconds from 0 to 100, and let's see what it brings from 0 to 200. Wow, it's like putting a usual car from 0 to 100, putting the RS7 from 0 to 200. You've seen there's a tempo limit, a tempo warner in there. It was set now at 180, you know, to just warn you that you shouldn't drive too fast. Maybe I should have set it here on 220 or something like that. But it's quite funny, because I think it's actually a good feature, because with this car you always tend to go faster, because it's, you know, so silent in here, and even when you go at these high speeds you think, you know, I'm just driving 100, and as soon you're ready at 150 or something like that. So it's actually good to have an acoustic and optical warning in here that you shouldn't go too fast. So let's now conclude about the Audi RS7 facelift. You know, I was already very satisfied with the A7 facelift. I think it is one of the leading cars in that class, and especially about the RS7. I think just from the visual side, it's a very great car, looks so amazing. And of course, I must say, just from the agility, I think this one is setting the standard in this class. There's hardly any other car that is that big and that heavy and still have this kind of agile feeling when driving. Of course, it's getting really expensive if you not only take the base price of about 130,000 euros in Germany here for the RS7, put even some more extras in it, then it's really getting expensive. And you have to think about, for such a test vehicle here, 150,000 euros, you could already buy a Bentley. But then again, you have to say, this one is surely the more agile car in comparison to the Bentley. So it's more about your personal taste, I must say. From all the technical features, the engine is so great, the sound, and also the characteristic of driving. So although you have such kind of power, it's really well controllable. And that's kind of, I think, also one of the amazing features of that car. The interior was also very pleasing, very modern and clean. I think there could be a little bit more of playing around with some nice features, and the dashboard, like the top of the dashboard, could have been something more from the material, something more high class, maybe the artificial leather or something like that. But in general, also when we get to the rear and the trunk, you see you also got some practical features of that car. And I would always take this one and not the A8, because we have the more practical trunk, for example. Still got a lot of space for rear passengers, and we got the more sporty feeling. The only downside is the car does stay heavy at that size. So if you really want a sporty car to have a lot of sporty fun with it, I would maybe go for a smaller car, because at some time, you know, physics play a role, and then you cannot really deny the weight of that car. And the last thing maybe I can a little bit criticize is that for this kind of top version, I've already mentioned, is for example with the Audi TT, I would have expected that there are more features in there when you already get the top version. But why is that? It will maybe remain a secret with the premium manufacturers. So I'm looking forward to your opinion on that car. Really looking forward, because especially from our Audi Autogefühl fans, what you think about this review on that car. And I hope to see you at the next Autogefühl episode. This is Thomas for you. Thank you.